Yeah, hi, okay. Thank you all for coming today for the JET program, Japan Exchange and Teaching Program information session here at the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute. My name is John Gale, and I was a JET from 2003 to 2006 in Kagawa Prefecture. Who's heard of Kagawa Prefecture? Really? Wow. Well, you guys have seen my presentations before. That's where you heard of Kagawa Prefecture.
I think that's where I remember it from.
Really?
I probably heard it because I have some friends who live there. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did they say about it? What's it known for?
God, I don't remember. They just mentioned that they lived there, and I was like, that's a little far from Kansai Gaidai, isn't it?
It is. It's a little far from Kansai Gaidai. Japan's smallest prefecture and famous for udon. That's pretty much like what they eat. I got pretty sick of it after about a month. So I taught at 2 junior high schools and 1 elementary school while I was over there. Yeah, they're monsters, the little elementary schools do. Do you know what your situation is, Steve?
1 junior high school and 2 elementary schools.
Okay, great. I teach Japanese here at the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute. Love what I do, love TFLI's mission and what we're about, so you can definitely ask us about taking Japanese classes here. I also do a lot of presentations. You guys have seen me at MTAC and Cherry Blossom Festival and things like that. So if you want to connect with me, my website is johnsensei.com. I've got my cards there. I've got an app on the App Store to help people learn their basic Japanese alphabet called Hiragana Breaker. It's a block breaking game that'll teach you the basic characters, and there's cards over there on the table for that too, so grab one of those on the way out. I got some guests with me today. Could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Stephen. I graduated from university in late 2013. I've been here in Nashville for a while. I first applied for the JET program in 2015 and was not accepted. And then I reapplied in 2016, and I will be leaving for Japan in 1 week.
Yay!
And I've also taken several courses here at TFLI. I can speak about that a little bit if it's helpful.
Yeah, where are you going to in Japan?
I am going to, here, I just pointed out.
Yeah.
Way down here on the Shimabara Peninsula. Nice.
Okay.
Instead of, I think the most rain in Japan, 2 meters of rain per year, something like that. Yes.
Enjoy. Okay, so we have people here who have been on JET or who are about to leave on JET and can speak to like the actual application process and everything that he just went through and what he's going through right now. You want to talk about feelings? We'll talk about feelings. John Sensei's okay with that type of presentation. So I'd like to give a special shout out and thanks to the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute for hosting today's event. We do have someone from TFLI here.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
So it was already mentioned that we have a couple of things that can be of big interest for those who are trying or planning to be involved with JET, and those are Japanese lessons and the Teaching English as a Second Language certificate. And I cannot make any promises, but I do believe that they help on the application if you either speak Japanese or have a clue about teaching or show some kind of commitment and idea. Yeah, I've been thinking about this and preparing for this for a while. So yeah, there are several people within TFLI or among our friends who have been through the program or somehow part of the program. So yeah, good place to be. And thank you, John, for doing this. We always appreciate everything that you do. Thanks.
Oh, no, thank you all for the opportunity. I really believe in JET and also TFLI, what we do. And so as Carolina said, here at TFLI, again, we do offer Japanese classes. I teach the beginning class. One of those rumors and speculations I hear about JET a lot of time is like, oh, I heard if you have Japanese ability, that actually works against you. Like you get less points or something like that. So Japanese ability is not required to apply for JET, but it actually does help. I mean, if you think about it, you're living and working in Japan. And when I arrived at my school, one of my schools was a sort of rougher school, whatever you want to call it, disadvantaged youth, inner city school, that type of thing. And they told me you were placed here because you have a high Japanese ability. So it is something that can be helpful in the job itself. And of course, you're going there, most people, to teach English. And you do work, as I'll explain, with Japanese teachers who are sort of the main teachers, but more and more the schools and the Japanese teachers of English are looking for people with actual skills and training in ESL, or teaching English. So the teaching English as a second language, a TESOL certification, is beneficial for your application. And when you Google that type of thing, you might find certifications that, you know, are like, whatever, $50, $100, you take 6 hours of online modules and you print out a certification. Versus something here at TFLI, which just does cost a lot more, but you get a lot of practical classroom experience. You can talk to it. What type of things did you all do in the TESOL class?
Oh man, just about everything you can imagine that had anything
Right.
to do with teaching. Things that you don't even know that teachers have to know. And honestly, I'm almost glad that I was rejected the first time I applied for the JET program, because I would not have been as prepared as I am now, having gone through that TESOL course. It will make you a really good teacher, and it will make you a confident teacher, and I think that's important.
Thank you. I agree completely, because it was actually after JET, I was like, man, I just love Japanese. I want to get more into it. So I got a master's degree, mainly because I wanted to teach the language. And that's when I started learning about language acquisition and teaching methodology and that type of thing. And I was like, snap, if I knew this stuff on JET, I would have been dangerous. I mean, I was a good ALT as it was, but I would have been disruptive. And, you know, if I had those knowledge and skills beforehand going into
Honestly, the most important part, I think, the most important thing that I learned in the TESOL course was how to structure your lessons.
Okay.
And how to make effective teaching exercises for your class. And that's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people. And
No.
it's not something that's clearly just logical that you can just figure out through doing.
Right. And we talked a little bit, a lot of my JET experience, honestly, I didn't spend a lot of time writing lesson plans and things like that. My Japanese teachers of English would grab me and be like, hey, John Sensei, are you free next period? Yeah? Okay, we're teaching page 60 of the second year textbook. Let's go. You know, and again, it's like you're in front of a bunch of 14-year-olds now, and you've got this material in the textbook, and it's like, what do you do? And that type of knowledge can definitely, you know, be internalized and say, okay, first we got to do presentation, then we got to do practice, then let's get the kids in a production activity. You know, if you have that knowledge, it makes it definitely, I think, a lot easier.
Yeah, otherwise you're standing there in front of the class with the book saying, can you read from this?
Yeah.
And they're just staring at you like some kind of idiot.
Human
Feel
tape
really
recorder.
bad.
So let's talk about JET, and anytime you guys have questions, you throw up the hands and ask them, okay? This isn't about me just talking and stoking my ego. I already have problems with that enough. We do these presentations for you guys, and we want to make sure that you leave here today with the information you came to get. So what is the JET program? From you guys who've heard about it, how would you describe it? Shout it out.
Official.
Official, in that it's administered by
The government.
the Japanese government, okay, so not a private company or anything like that. This is an official Japanese government program.
It's like a job. It's not just like a learning thing where you have to pay to do it.
Exactly, it is. I've got a whole slide about that type of thing. It's a job, not a study abroad that you pay for or anything like that. So you do come to work, most people, as English teachers. What else would you think about the JET program? Anybody else have any?
They really want somebody who is really interested in teaching them, not just going over because it's Japan.
Right. How many of you all here in the United States took Spanish or French in your middle school class? Did you like it? So it's like half and half. Okay, for you guys who did not like it, what didn't you like about it? It's just kind of school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just kind of school. You have your homework and everything. What if you had in your classroom a Spanish speaker or a French speaker? Somebody from France came into your classroom and was like, hey, I'm here to talk to you in French or Spanish, what we learned today. Would that increase your motivation?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely does on the JET program as well in the classroom. Another big important part, the E of JET stands for exchange. So one thing that differentiates JET from other opportunities to teach English in Japan, and there are others like Interact or private English conversation schools like Eon, but JET is definitely an exchange program. You are there in the classroom to be their little piece of America, their little representation of America that is so much more engaging than just Googling stuff about America or reading it online. You are their resource, and also you're going to receive a lot of enrichment and knowledge from your students and your community, and you're going to bring that back to the United States, and you're going to help people here in Nashville engage with Japan. You're going to have knowledge and experiences that not a lot of other people have. And so through that, Japan and these other countries have great relationships that participate on the JET program, because we have people on the ground at the grassroots level in classrooms making this program happen for what it is. So here's some of the statistics. The JET program has been around since 1987, okay? Before probably most of you were born, right? I can't say that. I was 7. Anyway, that first year there were only 848 jets from 4 countries. And I'm happy to say, of those 848, I know 2 of them. So a pretty big deal at the time. They talk about when they landed, there were lots of reporters and everything. So here's kind of when I was on JET, really at the peak of participants. And then with the economic crisis and everything, it kind of dipped down for a while. But now the number of participants is going back up, especially gearing for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Japan is really looking to internationalize a lot more. So JET participants are on the rise. So in 2016, there are the numbers, almost 5,000 from 40 different countries. And one thing I wanted to point out, what we do here in the U.S. is for U.S. citizens. Anyone who's not a U.S. citizen, there's obviously probably a JET opportunity for you. You just need to contact the Japanese embassy in your home country. So the JET program is, as we said, a paid full-time job, not a study abroad, not a volunteer program, and it's an immersion program, living there full-time on your own as a working adult, not in a dormitory with other students or anything like that. And as I've talked about, cultural exchange, definitely fun, definitely like the biggest positive experience on my life. At the same time, the darkest days of my entire life happened when I was on JET, struggling with culture shock or things like that. But definitely through that experience, it's something that will make you stronger, those challenges that you have to overcome. So I wanted to talk earlier about the eligibility criteria. Talked about what we do here is for United States citizens. The JET program does require a bachelor's degree by July of the year you depart. And this bachelor's degree requirement is an immigration requirement. It's a government thing. To get the visa, they issue you the instructor visa, you have to have a bachelor's degree. An associate's or just a TESOL certification or something like that is not sufficient. And you'll find that requirement for a lot of teaching English in Japan programs. You have to be in good mental and physical health. Because if you've seen, some of you said you watch YouTube videos and stuff, what kind have you seen of the JET lifestyle? Might be a little physically exerting.
Physically exerting. I was going to say it's, I don't know. I guess they're in the room, so
Yeah.
like sitting in the rooms a lot.
Standing up for an hour in front of 40 crazy kids, having elementary school kids climb all over you. I know in that previous situation I described, it's like, John Sensei, are you free next period? Okay, come up to my class on the 4th floor of the school, and it starts right now. And so it's like I got to run up those stairs and be ginky, be active and healthy and everything for those kids.
I've also seen a lot of
Yeah.
videos where they bike to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only bike to school for 15 minutes, but bike to school in a typhoon.
Yeah.
I've done that. So participation on JET does require a certain average degree of physical fitness and also mental health. You are going to be away from your family. You are going to experience culture shock. Everyone will. Yeah.
I have a question. It says bachelor's degree by the 15th of departure year.
Uh-huh.
Is there a specific application period?
There is, which we'll talk
Okay.
about or outline. It's generally the fall of every year. So coming up this October or so, applications are going to open. And then Stephen here's about to depart. When do you depart?
1 week from right now.
1 week from right now. So here, that's sort of the application timeline, which we're going to go over in detail.
Okay.
But one of the things I'll talk about is anybody can start working on their application essay at any time. You're in high school, you could start working on your application essay right now for 4 years or whatever. Then there's a few other technical requirements about not having lived in Japan or been on JET before. Excellent written and verbal English skills. One of the questions I always got asked by my teachers was, John Sensei, What's the difference between it's not and it isn't? I had no idea. Anybody have an idea? I still don't. But things like that, just being able to expect these types of questions and be able to answer them, and then usually default, it's like, well, the textbook says it's not, so let's teach that one. And also, as some of you guys have already mentioned and known, a strong interest in Japan and Japanese culture. I've seen people who have come to info sessions or even made it to the interviews, and you could tell that like Japan's really not their thing. They're just kind of looking for a job to get out of their parents' house or something like that. And what JET really needs is people who are going to be enthusiastic in their classrooms, in their towns, in their communities. And the CIR, which we'll talk about, you need the strong Japanese skills. So any questions so far? Yeah?
How was the culture shock? I know for some people it's like really, really bad, and some people it's just, it's okay. How was it?
For me, it was bad. I don't know. The really bad culture shock I had, what we teach about in the JET program, they give you a lot of materials, and I read about it, that there's 4 stages of culture shock. And there's like the first stage when you're like, wow, I'm in Japan, look, everything's so cool. And then the second stage is like, you're like really angry and frustrated, and things just aren't making sense. It's like in America, we do it this way, and this way's better. And so I definitely experienced a lot of that stage too. And I remember I was a member of a gym, and foreigners are actually pretty rare in Japan. So like white guy showing up, 2 feet taller than everybody else in there, running on the treadmill, that was like an event. What's going on, in the changing room and all that. So I'm sitting there running, and in the gym, you may have heard in Japan you have to take your shoes off to like go in someone's house. In the gym, you had to take your shoes off to go into the bathroom. And I knew that was the rule, but I was running on the treadmill and I sneezed, and there's like snot and stuff all over my hands. And so I just run to the bathroom, and I'm not going to take my shoes off. And then I like blow my nose and rinse myself off. But while I'm in there, the staff comes in to scold me for wearing my shoes in the bathroom. And he's just like so angry and so upset with him about that. And it's like the Incredible Hulk, like levels of anger. Like you wouldn't get that angry about stuff normally in the United States, but there, then it was like roar, and my shirt ripped and all that. I kind of got really mad at the guy, unnecessarily. So that was one of my big culture shock experiences. And yeah.
I guess because I know we'll be really involved in it being a full-time job and stuff, but
Yep.
Like, how would you say like you spent your free time? Because I think like being involved in the learning and immersing in the culture would be learning something new. So I thought one thing for me would be learning kendo.
Oh yeah.
Doing that. So like, how would you describe like exactly like the amount of free time that you had, and like, do you think somebody would be able to immerse into something new like that and be able to like put the time into that? So.
To answer your question, absolutely, yes. You may have heard about Japanese work hours being particularly long. I've worked at a lot of companies here, in the Japanese companies here in the US, and definitely worked those hours. But a JET contract will stipulate when your work hours are. So if it says you leave at 3 o'clock or whatever time, it differs by contract, then that's when you get to leave. My main goal was to learn Japanese, so I had a lot of free time to study and prepare for proficiency tests. But a lot of people do martial arts, calligraphy, traditional Japanese arts like tea ceremony or ikebana or something like that. So you definitely will have that time. And specifically about kendo, they have kendo teams at the school. And if you talk to your Japanese teacher of English, you might even be allowed to observe or participate with the kendo team at your school. Okay, great conversation, guys. Anything else? Yeah.
I
Keep it
know
going.
the Japanese school thing is much different from here in America. Like they go for way longer. So does that mean you versus an American school teacher, wouldn't you have a much longer working period than here?
What you have is your school year in Japan goes from April until March of the next year. So that's one thing that's different. But they still have really nice summer vacations and winter vacations and spring vacations and Golden Week, and Obon is coming up in August. They'll have time for that. So you do have breaks in the school year, And that's when you have vacation time also. And that's when you're encouraged to take your vacation time, is during those school breaks in the summer or winter or spring. But you do get a nice bit of vacation too. Like what we talk about when we train jets is how much, we traveled. We traveled to other countries. I was in Malaysia when the 2004 tsunami hit, if anybody remembers that, over like Christmas. So I was in Malaysia when that happened, and Singapore, and I went to Spain, and I visited my brother in Ireland. So you do have the free time, climbed Mount Fuji and a lot of things in Japan too. So you have that free time to be able to really have a great experience while you're over there. So I'm going to talk about the positions a little bit, which we've mentioned. 90% of them, vast majority, are ALTs, English teachers. Assistant language teacher is technically what it stands for. And they go across the whole gamut of schools, from elementary schools all the way through high schools. And why it's called an assistant language teacher is because a lot of the time you're working with a Japanese person who's the main English teacher, and we call them Japanese Teacher of English, or JTE. One thing you guys gotta learn about JET is we use a lot of abbreviations and acronyms. So if you hear me throw one out like that, just let me know, if you're not understanding it. As the ALT, you work with the JTE to plan the lesson and be there for the students to be that native English example. Everybody learning a new language is going to struggle with pronunciation. So you're there to help them with their pronunciation and also give them that motivation to practice what they've learned. There's a few different types of ALTs. I'd say the most common type is the base school ALT. This is what I was. I was at what was called my base school for about a 6-week period. Then for 2 weeks, I would go to that other school, that other junior high school. I'd just be there for 2 weeks. And while I was there, I'd also teach at the elementary school across the street. So your base school, you said you've got the one junior high?
Yeah, one junior high school, and then the 2 elementary schools are still right in the neighborhood, so I don't think I'm going to be traveling a lot.
Okay, so you'll be there as the base school. Some other people are rotationals, where they may be 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks over here, and then rotate through a cycle again. And then another type, especially in the more rural areas, are the one-shot ALTs, where they may go to a school for a week and then never visit that school again the whole year because they're going to different islands and different small schools around the country. And one of our friends here in Nashville, she was a one-shot ALT, and if I remember correctly, she was on JET for 2 years, and during that time visited 26 schools in a 2-year period, kind of a more remote, out-of-the-way area. So those are the different types of ALTs. So what does an ALT do? I've talked a lot about all of this already. You may definitely think about what's going on in the classroom, but there's also a lot that goes on outside the classroom. Your school might have an English club that meets after school, just like the art club or the baseball team or whatever. And so you may be asked to show up to the club meetings and club activities and help them out. There's also lots of events at schools, festivals, cultural festival, sports day, field day, things like that. My personal favorite, the one thing I really got into, was English speech contest, where the kids have to get up and memorize memorize like a 3 to 5 minute speech in English and present that. Yeah, speech contest is great. This is me. I had 7 kids in one speech contest. I had 26 students over 3 years. So Johnson's, it was definitely all about the speech contest coaching. So there's some time where you really get to know the students. You're sitting with them one-on-one and training them, helping them memorize their speech. And I'm stoking my ego. I told you it would happen. Every year I was on JET, I had a kid win a speech contest at some level, some year, because I just got so into it. It was so much fun. They feel great about it, and it really is, I think for them too, one of these sort of life-changing experiences for them at a young age. Yeah.
I guess I had another question kind of about culture shock, and I guess in regards to education, because I think we're all used to like being in school in America and what that's like, but I guess like how much different like is a Japanese school like and just like kind of I guess like motivationally or attitude wise or emotionally like are like Japanese schools as opposed to American schools, because I imagine it's very, very different. So I guess
it is different, but kids are kids wherever you go. And if you're expecting like obedient, love to study all day, just sit in their desk quietly and do what they're told. Japanese students, no. They don't. I told you I taught at a rough school. Kids were smoking and breaking windows and getting into fights and riding bicycles through the hallway and all sorts of stuff. So any sort of situation, any sort of student personality type, your slacker who sits in the back and all that exists over there completely. There are some of the surface differences you've seen, like wearing uniforms, and we talked about the school year. Also, in their schools, they stay in their homeroom all day. They only go to different classrooms if they go into music class or computer class or something, PE, some sort of specialty class like that. And high school in Japan is not mandatory. You actually have to apply and be accepted, almost like university here. And there may be some students who are really working hard. They're going to juku, to cram school, after school, to get ready to get into a good high school so they can get into a good college, which means they can get into a good company after they graduate. Japan definitely still has a sort of stratified social structure like that. So what I found in my junior high school, my equivalent of ninth graders, but we call them first years, second years, third years. Someone called them third years. They're about to graduate. They're thinking of going into high school. They're studying and preparing for entrance exams like all the time. And I would plan these really awesome lessons for my third years, and the teacher would be like, "We don't need you today, John Sensei. We have to get ready for high school entrance exams." So to be honest, like 80% of my time was spent teaching first and second years, which is like 7th and 8th grade here. Because again, the third years, they're so focused on those high school entrance exams. And when you get to high school, it's the same way. The third years are so focused on their college entrance exams that you could be like, "Hey, I've got this fun game plan and we're going to run around the room and listen to some music." And the teacher's like, "No, we're going to take practice tests for an hour." Because socially, in their education system, that is very important. The results on their entrance exams do have impacts on their career later on in life. So that's a lot more of a priority than, "Hey, I've got a fun game planned." And I think as an ALT, you also need to respect that system, even if you don't agree with it, or if you've stayed up all night planning that game or something like that. Like we've all been there, right? You'll be there soon. Yeah. Did that answer some of your questions? Any other questions from that? Any other differences I may have missed?
Yeah, I was just going to say, because I remember when I was at Kansai Gaidai sitting in one of the classes for the Japanese students. Now, this was a college, so I don't know if it's like this, like with middle school, high school, and all that stuff too, but like, I did notice that the students were much quieter than, like, for instance, like here in America, we have more of a culture of, like, when you have a question, you raise your hand and, you ask whatever's on your mind, or like you will, I don't know, you just have more of like the freedom and the like choice to just, you feel more motivated to just go ahead and ask things and like speak up, and like, I mean, it is for their English practice, so you'd think they'd be using it more, but like anytime the teacher would ask a question, it would just be 2 minutes of the most awkward and painful silence I've ever heard in my life. And I'm just like, is that a common thing just like within Japanese schools that like,
You know what, let's leave the classroom. When I first went to a study abroad in Japan, I was in the Nagoya area, and my favorite band, Weezer, was playing in Nagoya. So I definitely went to go see Weezer, and like while the band's playing, everybody's jumping up and dancing and everything, and while they're not playing, and the lead singer would even go to the microphone and be like, "Buh!" like trying to get a reaction out of people, and they're just, but the next song plays. So I definitely think there is that cultural thing that's not only in the classroom, but everywhere in Japanese society. I don't really have a good way to explain it to you. I don't know if anybody else has some input.
I mean, I've seen videos of like Japanese concerts where, like, especially when the band isn't playing or if it's a slower song, if like there's ever like a camera shot of the audience, they're all like standing in like perfect lines.
Perfect rows, yeah. And again, I came from the background of listening to Weezer and Rancid and like all these punk rock bands. I was in the mosh pit and everything, and like it totally was a huge culture shock in a good way though.
To add on the Japanese children, I work with them every Sunday. We have people from Japan to come to this church. Also offers like English classes.
Okay, awesome.
So we a lot of times get a lot of Japanese couples and their children who don't know any English and they just came here and they act just like regular old kids. Like they cry.
Yeah.
They'll do like basically anything like a normal American kid would do. They're not that much different than kids.
Elementary school kids are monsters.
I keep like 5-year-olds down and sometimes 7 to 10.
I'm more scared of middle schoolers.
No,
They're terrifying.
middle schoolers, you know where they stand. Like if they say they like something, you know they're going to like that. Like a band or a TV show or a movie, you know they really like that. It's not like little kids like, oh, I like this, and then 6 months later, but I like this now. So I prefer the middle school, high school age actually. Elementary school kids, they need a lot of energy. Yeah.
Sorry, one more thing.
No.
So,
Keep asking.
in terms of the like planning lessons and creating teaching materials, like could you think of some examples of like what that would look like? Like what kind of like an exercise or something would look like for the class?
A lot of Japan is very much about like forms and structures, which in terms of teaching can be a good thing. So a lot of times they have to submit, especially when we were doing what are called demonstration classes, they would have to submit like a very prescribed form for that lesson plan to the Board of Education or whoever. So we would see boxes on there like, your basic stuff, date and time and period and what homeroom class you're in, but then also like learning objective and then, warm up 5 minutes. John Sensei will do this. And then, this part of the class, we're going to do this for X minutes. So there might be a form for it. There might also just be you talking with your JTE. Sometimes they would say, John Sensei, just come to class for the first 10 minutes and read the sentences out of the textbook and then you're done. And I would say, let me stay. They're like, you can go back to the staff room. And I'm like, no, I'll hang out. I'll hand out papers or I'll read more sentences or whatever I can do to be the assistant, to the teacher. And what we say in JET, a lot, I don't think it's come up in the presentation, we say ESID, every situation is different. And you can also break that down, like every JTE is different, every class is different, every student is different. And part of it is just learning that adaptability. It's not something I can teach you, it's not something I can train him on before he leaves, as much as we try. It's something that comes through experience, being able to adapt to different teachers, different classrooms, different students. I mean, I had a variety. I would have some JTEs just hand me the lesson plan in that form I told you about. They're like, John Sensei, do what you're supposed to do where it has your name on that form. And then other times, my favorite JTE, I remember this one time he comes in and he's like, John Sensei, come here. Let's go to class. I'm hungover. You take it. And then it's like, okay, let's open our textbooks and let's do this thing. So it can go through like that whole spectrum like that.
That's fun.
All right, anything else?
I see one huge difference between, I don't know if it's true or not, I've just heard it. In Japan, every time a new teacher comes in, a class representative has to stand up and they have to like bow or something. It's a back bow.
At the beginning of class?
Yeah, like when the teachers rotate.
Yeah, and in English class it's kind of fun because they a lot of times teach them to do it in English. So they like, if you have a kid who's really into it, be like, stand up! Attention! Bow! Sit down! Which in Japanese is kiritsu, kyotsuke, rei. Chakuseki. That's what they do in their science class and their math class and every class. What they've basically done is translated that into English, followed the same procedure. You have like the person, I don't know how to translate it, the tanto, the like kid who's in charge, who's like the class leader or something, and they'll be the one that has to say those commands at the top of every class. Go ahead and keep going. I'll talk about outside the classroom. Got some good pictures though. There's the school festivals like I was talking about, the sports day. So one thing they're really into is they're probably going to make you like run a relay race or something. Because like the kids flip out about it. They're like, oh, there goes John Sensei, he's in the race, go John Sensei, yeah, it's great. And then you get to do a lot of other stuff like dress up like Santa Claus. That is me. That was a Santa Claus suit from the 100 yen store, but it actually probably cost like 600 yen, probably like $6 or something at the time. So I do that for Christmas lessons, or we would travel for speech contest, help them. A lot of times if they have the festival, you see these signs here in the background. I think it might even be the same one, I don't know. but they have to make these signs for their homeroom class, and they'll say, John Sensei, we want to put English on our class sign. Come help us with it.
Like homecoming?
It's not homecoming, but
Well, no,
similar.
but-
Yeah. Cultural festivals and things like that. We talked about the after-school activities. I would play basketball sometimes with the kids, and what I eventually got in the habit of doing, every day after school, all the athletic teams would run a couple laps around the school, and then they'd go to the baseball field or the soccer field or whatever it was. So when they were all running their warm-up laps, I would run with them after school, and then I would go home after that. The CIR, you said you're interested in the CIR.
Sensei said that might be the track she recommends I go on after I come back from my study abroad and finish up.
Okay. The CIR, different from the ALT. I know most people are interested in ALT, but even if you're an ALT, you're going to work with CIRs a lot. So I'm going to speak to it a bit. CIRs are jets who work in government offices. Like they may work at City Hall. They may work at the prefectural office, something like that. And they do a lot of exchange activities, a lot of translation, a lot of interpretation, and also helping ALTs and other jets in the area. Maybe helping with sister city exchange events. If you have a delegation from another country coming, help them out, show them around. The big difference is in application-wise, the CIRs do need a high level of Japanese ability. And what we recommend is about a JLPT. If you know that word, you know what I'm talking about. Japanese language proficiency test certification of an N2 or N1
How do you get
level.
that certification?
Oh, we just had a seminar here about it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm trying to make it into a video as well. Just Google, I'll write it down. Google JLPT,
Okay.
that phrase. If you're interested in using Japanese in your career, that's a
All right.
word you need to know, the same as water or food or anything like that. JLPT. It's got 5 levels, real quick. 5's the lowest level. You need about 100 kanji for. And then it goes up in difficulty. And 1's the most difficult of over 2,000 kanji. That's what I have. And N2's about 1,000 kanji.
Okay.
So you need that might help you with your level 2. You need over 1,000 kanji. And also the websites will define how many words and everything like that. And if I may, I saw this a lot when I was a JET coordinator. A lot of people are a Japanese major, or they were in the local Japanese speech contest, and their senseis, praise them for their high Japanese ability. And they would think they were qualified for a CIR when their JLPT level was about N4 or N3.
I don't know if I'm qualified. That's just
Yeah.
what Sensei suggested. So.
Oh, I believe so too. If that's, especially if in your career, like translation and interpreting, if that's the type of thing you want to do, I definitely think it's an advantage. But the number one thing I've seen for years is people overestimate their ability to be qualified for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And the one thing I hear from the people who are not qualified but like really gunning for that CIR position, they're terrified that if they're an ALT, their Japanese is not going to get any better. For this test, I went from being the equivalent of like the level 4 to the level 1 in the time I was in Japan, and I was an ALT. So that's completely not true. Your Japanese ability is going to skyrocket. You're going to have tons of time to practice and support from the JET program to get your Japanese ability up. And what's the other thing they're always scared of? Some of them just don't want to teach, and you can't really help with that. But that's the big thing with CIRs. I see them overestimate their ability. ALT is still an amazing opportunity to get your Japanese up to a professional level. I mean, that's what I did. So what I would advise people is don't risk it. If it's like skin of the teeth, I don't see the value in risking getting denied, JET participation because you went for CIR versus having a really good chance at being an ALT.
Okay.
And what I worry about too is a lot of people like not even making it to the interview stage. They're like, okay, applied as a CIR, nope, you obviously don't have it. But then yeah, in the interview, that's where you can sort of elect to be considered as an ALT.
Okay.
We've kind of talked about this, some of the things they do. A lot of CIRs I met actually still had to teach English class. So the people applying for CIR because they don't want to teach I saw, I saw CIRs going to preschools and giving puppet shows and that type of thing. Or, CIR is not necessarily the escape from teaching that a lot of people might think it is. Okay, support for JET. Somebody had questions about this before we started, I think, the sort of different government agencies and structure of the JET program. Big old chart. Where do I even start with this? I know all this like the back of my hand. It's just been a while. Okay, let's start here with you in the United States. You're going to be a applicant at first, right? And who you're going to work with is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's like Japan's State Department. So that's consulates and embassies in foreign countries. That's where the first application process takes place. Then there's an organization called CLARE, which sort of oversees the application in Japan, that oversees selection and placement and all of that. When you get to Japan, you then mainly, I wouldn't say but a lot more involved with the Ministry of Education, because it has to do with education curriculum and standards and things like that. Now you have a lot of support. When you get to Japan, you're going to go with a whole bunch of people from Nashville or Chicago or wherever. You go through all sorts of orientations here. How do you feel about the orientation process? You came to the Q&A.
I mean,
We're trying.
it was good.
Yeah.
I think all the questions I had were answered really. I know there's going to be another mandatory orientation towards the end of next week.
Friday.
Yeah. So and then an even longer 2-day orientation in Tokyo after I get there. So they're really pulling out all the stops to make sure we know what we should know what we're doing.
We try, yeah.
Yeah.
But do you feel any sort of anxieties or anything, or have those been spoken to? I mean, it's a crazy adventure.
It's more just anxiety over I'm not sure exactly what the situation is when I'm going to be there, what I'm going to have to buy. It's more like starting a new life type of anxiety, not I don't know what I'm doing type of anxiety.
Uh-huh.
So I'd say that's healthy.
Okay.
Okay, this one's kind of a two-parter. First, I guess my thought is if you have like a group going from Nashville to Japan, and I guess you can probably speak to this, is like, will all the people like be going to different areas, I'm guessing, of course?
Yeah, very much so.
And then on that second part being, like, when you have free time or something, is there like a large friendship there, like a community that you grow among fellow ALTs, to where like if you're kind of, feeling like a little lonely, or need to socialize and stuff, and if it's kind of hard for you kind of communicating to others in Japanese or whatever, that you'd have that support and friendship and everything among your fellow ALTs. So yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All the above.
That's why I advanced to the next slide. You have something in Japan called AJET, which offers exactly that second point you were talking about, the networking and the support amongst other jets, and events, activities, things like that. But you will be living on your own. Like, I've seen applicants be like, do we get roommates? Are we all in a dorm or something? Like, no, you'll be on your own in an apartment or some sort of independent living situation like that. And one of our alumni, he kind of put it really, really well. He was on a small island sort of north of Okinawa. It was still part of Kyushu, but he was definitely on the small end, and he described the process. He's like, yeah, we're all in Nashville, and we get to Tokyo, and there's even more people, and we're finding who we're going to our prefecture with, and it's great. And we all get on the plane together, and we get to our prefecture, and we're meeting all our teachers and everything, and it's great. And then they take me in this van, and then they take me on this ferry to this island, and then when we get on the island, they take me to this apartment, and they say good night, and they shut the door, and I'm alone. So he definitely did have that type of experience. And, then in that situation, he would have to learn, okay, the ferry takes an hour to go to the mainland, where there's 6 other jets placed in that city. So I know how to plan my schedule if I want to socialize with an AJET event or something like that.
I have a question.
Yeah,
You said one shot. You knew a one shot who went to 24 different schools.
yeah.
What's their living situation like? Are they just going all over the country all the time? Or?
They might have to have like a car or get a special train pass or bus pass. I would say I think she had a car specifically. I did not drive a car for 3 years of my life. I rode a bicycle and trains and buses everywhere.
Okay, I didn't know how far away like one shot schools would be.
If
so.
they have to take a ferry, they may get like a ferry pass so that they, like a commuter's pass, so
Okay.
they could take a ferry out to an island to be there for the day and come back in the evening.
I know there are some ALTs who have been told by their contracting organizations that they need a car, because
Okay.
if sometimes the senior high schools are somewhat spread out, and like if you're in one of the really huge prefectures, there's not a lot of people, you've got to travel 50 minutes by car between your schools sometimes.
Learning how to drive in Japan sounds scary.
I thought so, but a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, no. Just
I'm
go
not
for
planning
it."
on getting a car.
Like their automotive market is like really different. If a car is older than 10 years old, it's worthless in their mind, which means you can get it for really cheap. And there's probably not so much wrong with it. Okay, other questions about this? Nope. Okay, let's advance the slide. The JET program does offer a Japanese language course. So like I was talking about, there is a huge amount of support for you learning Japanese. What I found is it just makes everybody's life easier. It makes your JTE and your students and your neighbors and other JETs, everybody's life is better the higher your Japanese ability gets. So the JET program and your teachers and your students, everybody's definitely supporting you and pulling for you to get your Japanese ability up. And this isn't an official thing, but I was taking this course and it was actually too easy for me. I was getting really bored with it. I was really focusing on the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, and I was studying a lot. But I kept taking my tests and turning my test in on time, and I got really high scores on my test. And then my supervisor at City Hall was like, "John Sensei, you've been selected for a 2-week intensive study program in Osaka during the summer that's all expense paid, and you don't have to," well, I had to do transportation, but no tuition, and you don't have to take any vacation. Like we're gonna recognize that as work for you, as training. So that was definitely how I got my level 2, is because I spent 2 weeks in Osaka. Anybody familiar with Osaka? Been there? Are you familiar with Rinku Town? I didn't think so. It's this part of reclaimed land near the Kansai airport where they've got like some shopping outlets and stuff, but that's about it. Like it's definitely like out of the city, and we were in like this dormitory in this building, so couldn't go out to Osaka because I'd have to like take a train or a ferry or something like that. So yeah, I just studied for like 2 weeks straight in this language school. It was awesome. So definitely if Japanese is your goal, there's definitely that support there for you. To me, the JET experience is not over after the 1 to 5 years you spend there and your contract's up and you move. JET is a lifelong experience. It's something that you will carry with you always into your career and your activities when it's done. And a big way to do that is through the JET alumni associations. So if you're a JET and you come back to Nashville, hey, you're automatically a member of the Music City JET Alumni Association. Or wherever you go, Chicago, or anywhere else, there's 19 JETA chapters, is how I pronounce it, or JET AA chapters here in the United States. So we cover Tennessee and Kentucky. And we've got a lot of active JET alums in Kentucky right now who are putting on events and activities for JETs up in Kentucky. And what I realized when I came back is like, your family and your friends, they're really excited to see you, but nobody really kind of gets you anymore. It's like, you can't throw out the words onsen, genki, daijoubu, what's your keitai number? You can't like use those words and everything. People don't know what onsen is. They don't know what significance things are. They don't have a way to relate to it. And it can be kind of lonely, like that, with that reverse culture shock. It's like nobody gets me anymore. And JETA does. The other JET alumni, we get together and we can trade onsen stories, which are the hot baths. For those of you who don't know, you trade onsen stories, or recognize the words like Daijobu and are you Genki? Yeah. Are you Daijobu? Are you Jobs? How's your Jobometer? Is it in the green? You understood me though.
Unfortunately.
So this is definitely the group that understands you for your social network when you come back to your home, and also your professional networking. Like so many of my career opportunities have come through being a part of JETA. Like I moved back I went to grad school in San Francisco. I moved back to Nashville. I just sort of Googled and saw there's a JETA chapter. This was November 2011. I walk in and I was like, is this a JET thing? I used to be a JET. Like, can I be here? Do I have permission to be here? And they're like, yeah, of course, come in. And then by May of 2012, I was the treasurer of the organization. And by September of 2012, I was the JET program coordinator at the Japanese consulate. So like being involved with JETA was like a huge foundation for my career and my network and coming back. Questions about JETA? Everybody's Jobometers in the green? I got a lot of confused looks on that one, which is appropriate. Daijobu means okay. Like, are you okay? Daijobu. Repeat after me. Daijobu.
Daijobu.
So if I ask, is your Jobometer in the green? Are you okay? It's not a real thing. It's something my friends and I made up. Workplace information. This is a picture of my school. See, there's the school building and they're out there playing soccer and everything else. Okay, yes. One thing we want to point out, a lot of people say things like, if I get hired by JET, if I can get employed by JET. And what we'd like to make clear is JET is the government program that selects and places people, but it's not technically a participant's employer. A participant is employed by what we call a contracting organization, or CO. There's another one of those acronyms for you. And the contracting organization could be, in my case, it was City Hall. I lived in a place called Takamatsu City, so Takamatsu City Hall was my employer, and I went to Takamatsu City Municipal Schools where I was placed. Okay, do you know who your CO is?
Shimabara Board of Education.
A Board of Education? Okay, so employed by boards of education, or the prefectural government, or the city government. That's your actual employer. That's who you enter into a contract with. And JET contracts are they're relatively standard across the board, but there's a few little differences between them. Or a CO may provide certain startup luxuries for their JET. For example, in my case, my position, I was a brand new position coming into my job. And a lot of JETs, do you have a predecessor?
I do.
A lot of people might have a predecessor who came before them in that same job, whose contract is up, and now they're swapping out your predecessor for you.
Mm-hmm.
And have you bought any of their stuff, or are you going to have?
He gave it all to me for free.
For free? Yeah, I did the same thing when I left. It's just easier.
Yeah.
So you'll get to move into an apartment that's got your predecessor's stuff, so you don't have to worry about a lot of your startup furniture.
Left me a bike.
And a bike.
Yeah.
Okay. I was not the case. I did not have a predecessor. And so, but still, my Board of Education set me up with like TV and rice cooker, and refrigerator, and a futon, and just some basic living essentials, so I could get in there and get started with my job. And then, yeah, when I left, of course, I bought bookshelves and different things, and I just gave it all to my successor. The contracts are for a minimum of a 1-year period. So if you're looking at the commitment, that's the minimum commitment, the 1 year. And so your year's about to start.
Yes.
Next week.
Mm-hmm.
And actually come about February or so, your contracting organization is going to come ask you if you want to renew. Okay? And then in February, if he renews, then you'll be 1 more year, that cycle. 1 year at a time is the commitment. And the max commitment right now is up to a 5-year total. So you could do that process 5 times and be on JET 5 years. If you wanted to stay in Japan, if you just wanted to come home, if you wanted to go to grad school, that's all up to you, you know. It doesn't have anything necessarily to do with your contracting organization anymore. Questions about this stuff?
What is the breakdown like of people who stay on with the program? Like, how likely are people to continue it all the way through for 5 years?
back in my day, we only had 3 years. So that's what I did. What I feel, and in the people I've talked to, this isn't any sort of official statistic, but this is me and most of my friends, there's like this magic number around 2.5. It's like the people who left after 2 years really regretted it. Like they weren't done with the experience. But those of us who stayed 3, like that last 6 months was just like the worst culture shock, and like, man, I'm ready to get out of here and move on with my life. Because it's not a career, so about after 3 years of it, you'll start to max out, the skill growth you'll get through it for teaching, or maybe you've hit your language goals. That's what I was hitting my JLPT goals and ready to move on with that next stage of my career. So again, it depends on that. This is what I've seen, about 2.5. People have done 2 or less tend to regret it. They weren't done. People who've done 3 or more were definitely like done with it, and like almost in some ways jaded with it a bit at the end. How long it was. So.
I've heard of at least one case where someone stayed for an ALT stayed for 5 years, and then they were hired by their Board of Education for additional years outside of the JET program
as a private
yes, exactly.
ALT. Yeah, that happens too.
How common is that?
Rare.
Yeah, somewhat rare. Or they could hire you as like a CIR, a private CIR, if you've got your Japanese up to handle that. I mean, some people, one friend of mine, she's like, I did 4, because at the end of 3 years, I didn't have any career prospects or anything, so I was like, well, don't know what I'm doing with my life, 1 more year. But then, she went on to grad school after that and figured it out. So. All right, here's sort of the typical work day. Your typical school day, Monday through Friday, in the morning till the afternoon, about 35 hours per week. Again, this is probably kind of standard, but it's definitely every situation is different. What I like to do, it wasn't in my contract, just personally, when the kids come to school in the morning, there's usually a couple teachers out there to say good morning to them as they enter the school gate. And everybody's like, Ohio gozaimasu, Ohio gozaimasu. So I really enjoyed being out there when the kids came to school and was like, good morning, John Sensei. So I kind of chose to do that. I feel like that was like around 7 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. or so. I would be at school. And then, they'd get out at like 3, and like I told you, I'd do the run around the school. And I have a feeling I was out of there by like 4 o'clock or so. So every situation is different. And you get the paid vacation, which we've talked about, which you're encouraged to take during your school breaks. And sort of more about the breaks. There's also 15 paid national holidays in Japan. So even though they go to school year-round from April to March, they do have quite a bit of break during the school year. The salary, the money. Let's talk about money. Jets are essentially millionaires. Salary of over 3,360,000 yen per year. Rolling in it. You guys have been in my class. We just did this. What's that about in U.S. currency, Rachel-san?
Probably about 33,600 a year.
Dollars per year. Yeah. The exchange rate fluctuates, so if you're paying student loans or sending money back to the U.S. in dollars, that exchange rate might affect that. But in terms of living in Japan, where you earn yen and pay yen, it's a very comfortable salary, especially for people getting right out of school. And it does go up a little bit the longer you stay, so that could be another advantage to staying longer than 1 or 2 years. It's not mentioned on here. Yeah, it is. Okay, right here, this asterisk, which nobody reads. I was about to not read it myself. But this is the pretty sweet deal, that if you are an American ALT, not a CIR, not a Canadian, if you are American, you get 2 years free of not having to pay income tax to the Japanese government. And if you are an American citizen who lives abroad and earns their salary abroad in a foreign currency, and you make less than like $100,000 a year, you do not owe income taxes to the United States. So, the JET program is probably one of the only opportunities in life that can beat the whole death and taxes rule. And that you can get 2 years income tax free as an American ALT. Again, not a CIR, not a Canadian, not an Australian, not anything else. This is a special tax treaty between the United States and Japan. Yeah.
I'm so glad that it was mentioned, like exchanging money for like sending back for student loans or whatever, because that was one thing that I was thinking about. Was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Am I still going to be able to pay student loans, like, you know, while I go, you know? And so I was wondering, like, kind of how that exchange process works, if anybody might be able to answer that question of, like, sending money back to the United States, like, if there's an official process, or if I could use some, like, app like Venmo and just send money back. Like, I don't know if that would be...
You can. I don't know. Anybody have something?
I studied abroad in Eastern Europe, and I actually had my bank account connected to my European bank account. So I could just, like, you call mom or dad, their name was on that account, and they could transfer. All I had to do was just be on the other end approving it, and I think they charged like $3 to do it.
So you have like a Japanese bank account and then your American one, and then you just
I would
send
assume it works the same way.
When you land at your contracting organization, when you get to your city or prefecture where you're going, you're not going to go straight to school. Maybe to do some introductions, but you're going to spend a few days with like your city hall or your contracting organization, and they're going to take you to go set up a bank account and your utilities and maybe your phone and get all that going. So they'll probably have a bank that they want you to open an account at, because in my case, because the city, it was called the 114 Bank, and because the city had their bank accounts with 114 Bank, they made us have our accounts with 114 Bank so that they could deposit our salary, direct deposit, and not have any transaction fees with another bank. So the contracting organization may have a setup like that. So then once it's in that bank account, what you do with it is up to you. There's different ways. Japan's post office has banking services, and some people, if it's just the occasional transfer of money, they may use the post office services, because I understand they have fair rates. Are you figuring this out? Are you having to transfer money home? I didn't either, so
I have no idea what the situation is going to be like, but fortunately I'm not going to be having to transfer money internationally, but
yeah.
I mean, stuff like paying like credit card bills or something, I don't know.
I don't necessarily endorse any of these, but some people have found luck with this xe.com. It's like a foreign exchange currency platform, but what it does is it lets you have an account, and you can have the same one account but have it in multiple currencies. Another bank that does that in Japan is Shinsei Bank, and they're pretty famous for having a service that used to be called Go Lloyds. I think it's called Go Remit now, that's it, right? Shinsei Bank has a service called Go Remit. When I was a JET coordinator, I looked at Shinsei Bank also offers that ability that you could have one account and have that account be in both yen and US dollars. And then you could say, okay, I want to transfer yen into my dollars portion, and then have my student loans or whatever fall out from the dollars, or transfer the dollars back. They're more like the online banks. They don't have branches or anything like that. And so they can typically keep costs down, and they'll have really fair transfer rates, or maybe won't charge you a foreign exchange transaction fee or something like that. So there's different ways that people go about it. And that's sort of the advantage of being on JET, like in a group of people. You're going to meet a lot of people who are in your same situation, and somebody might be able to say, yeah, I've got it set up with Go Remit, or yeah, I go to the post office once a quarter, and here's what that process looks like. So you'll definitely have those resources available to you as you get ready to depart, and especially when you get there.
Awesome.
I mean, it's been around since 1987, 30 years, so people have had to do this for a while now. Yeah. Okay, great question. Any other questions about that along those lines? Actually got more on this slide besides the asterisk as about the skip. So you do, your transportation to and from Japan is covered. If you go look at a private English conversation school or whatever, you're going to have to pay your own plane ticket and everything to get over there. The JET program is different in that it covers your plane ticket to and from Japan. Now coming back from Japan, you have to leave within a short amount of time right after your contract ends. I think it may be 3 months, but don't quote me on that. I'm sure it's on the website. In my case, when I got done with JET, I actually moved to Tokyo and went to school. So when I came back to the United States, when I was done with school in Tokyo, I had to pay my own way because I was outside of that contracted time to come back to my home country and get my flight covered. Yeah.
Now, I know that covers the plane ticket, but does it cover like transporting like some things like luggage and things that you would take with you, or just strictly like you as a person on that plane?
So you've gone through the orientation about
Yeah.
luggage and all that. We
Yeah.
definitely train you about these type of things. You get 2 checked bags, limit of 50 pounds each, and they have to be this many. So
Pretty standard, like.
standard international flight stuff, that's covered. But if you wanted to ship stuff over there beforehand, or winter clothes,
Yeah.
or books, or things you don't need, that would be on you. And the one we recommend from our research, what we found out is the United States Post Office flat rate international priority mail boxes are about the cheapest rate around it. Their large box, which has a max weight of 20 pounds and it's only like this big, is like $90 flat rate. And that may sound expensive, but that same box through FedEx or UPS is like $200 some dollars. So. And also when you get to Japan, everybody has their Tokyo orientation, then you need to get to your city or your prefecture. That transportation is covered for you. And also, like I said, if you have to take a ferry or a bus, if your contracting organization specifies you have to take this transportation to get to your work, they may provide you that as well with a commuter pass or something like that. Yeah.
Do you have to pay where you're staying, or is that covered?
You do have to pay your own rent, but this is where I say every situation is different. Some contracting organizations may be subsidizing your housing. So what the contracting organizations do, you may have heard the rumors of how expensive it is to get an apartment and things like that in Japan. What a lot of contracting organizations do is they, as an organization, have the lease on the apartment. Or they may own a property. They may own a condo or even a small house. And as Stephen's predecessor is leaving, they're going to move him into that same living situation. And that way they're not entering into new contracts over and over and raising the housing price. Now that's different in different places. I understand if you're a Tokyo jet, that's different. But generally over 30 years, that's been the process. And so what I did, that was my situation. My employer was actually the leaseholder on my apartment. And they would pay the rent, which was about $400 a month, the equivalent. And I would pay Takamatsu City $100 a month as like a reimbursement. So for 3 years of my life, I was paying $100 a month in rent. That's great. That is great. I mean, it was a tiny apartment. It was like the size of this table. Not even this one. This one. But yeah, that's pretty cheap. Now my friend, I think, was a similar situation, and her rent was about $300 a month.
I'm getting 2 rooms for $400.
2 rooms for $400. So again, every situation is different. But yeah, you will be paying your rent and paying your utilities and all of those expenses. All right, last bullet point on this one. I don't want to skip this one because if you work as a JET participant, you are enrolled in Japan's national health insurance system, which is awesome. I'm also kind of unique in my experiences. I got sick all the time. I got sick every 2 months with a cold. I had food poisoning while I was there. I had this poison sumac experience. I can tell you about it later, but my pinky swelled up to about twice the size that it is now. Okay? I had poison sumac all up my arms and hands. I could not grab a spoon or if I was grabbing a marker in class, it was very much, like this to write on the board. Okay? That was a 6-week ordeal. I was in the hospital every week, getting shots, getting IVs. I never stayed overnight. Getting shots, getting IVs, taking prescription creams home and prescription pills home. 6 weeks period. How much do you think I spent on that ordeal?
Zip.
Not zip. It's not totally free.
100,000.
200?
About $300. All that medicine, all those IVs, all those shots, all those doctor visits, every week for 6 weeks. About $300 out of my pocket for that ordeal. So it is a pretty awesome system.
So there's no need to get like a broad health insurance or anything?
Not while you're there.
I was just wondering because since I'm about to study abroad, my father's bought some insurance for me while I'm over there. So I need to convince him that's not necessary, I guess.
For while you're in Japan?
Yes, on the JET program.
On
that's what I
JET,
mean.
no, you have awesome health insurance. your concerns are again like if you're traveling abroad or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that's different, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay, living situations. We've been talking about apartments. Here's a picture of my apartment that, again, I told you I was paying $100 a month for. I was really young and thin and handsome at the time. It's kind of hard to look at these pictures, but let me give you the grand tour. This was the television that I told you my contract organization. They set me up with this. However, the Japanese PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, and at the time you could buy a Nintendo Famicom, like an NES system. You could buy them brand new still. All three of them hooked up to that. There's all the games, and Rachel-san and Shane-san, you know the Miyazaki films I bring to class to show you guys. Right there they are. That whole shelf right there is just flashcards from my studying, because this was before smartphones and everything. There's all my Japanese language textbooks.
You got a Gundam?
I got a Gundam model. I did a Gundam model. Yeah, that was the only time in my life I've ever put together a Gundam model. And
Don't lie, that's not true.
no, it's true. I also do not LARP, despite what you guys think. Okay, my Gundam model and my Game Boy Advance, and that is pretty much it. The rest of it is like whatever. So here's my futon I slept on, raised above the floor. And this is sort of like my main living room. And then what you can't see from where this picture is taken care of is like the little kitchen area and then the bathroom sort of attached to it. So probably like 400 some square feet. I don't know, it's kind of hard to think about it in American terms. But pretty small apartment, but also covered everything I needed. Any question about my collection of games or my Gundam or?
I have a question
Yeah.
about the apartment.
The
So,
apartment, okay.
You're tall. I'm tall.
Yeah.
So, a concern I like. So, if your contractor
Yeah.
supplies anything, so like the length of futon or the length of bed there, like at least in our universities, if you
Yeah.
live in the dorm, they actually have twin-size beds that are a little bit longer than standard because of the athletes that have to stay in the dorms.
Right.
So is there any accommodation like that?
My aunt was so worried about that before I left, but I had no problems on that. Now in this apartment, in terms of being tall, that's the door out to the balcony, which I would have to duck to get out of. Yeah. And then on my balcony is my washing machine for my laundry, so it's outside. And in Japan, they usually hang their clothes to dry on the balcony. And I put up with it for a month, and then I went to the electronics store and I threw down the like $600 for a dryer. It's not a gas dryer, it's an electric dryer, so it would take like 3 hours to dry a load of laundry. And it actually had a tube the water would have to pour out of and go down a drain that was on the balcony. You know what? Best $600 I've spent in my life. Okay. And I sold that thing for $150 when I left, so huge return on investment. So yeah, that's how I did my laundry, out on the balcony. One time my students were riding the bikes and they saw me, so yeah.
Why is it on the balcony?
There's no space. Look at that. And half of it's video games. There's no space.
The other half.
Have to sleep in the other half. I actually later, I think after this photo was taken, I actually bought a digital piano which would sit in front of these trash cans because you have to separate your trash in Japan. So I would just have separate trash cans. These are my plastics, these are my papers. So it made it a lot easier on the different trash days. I could put my trash out. So I did buy a digital 88 key piano and put it in front of those trash cans. Good story. Any other questions? Okay. Yes, different situations. Every situation is different. Every student is different. This girl is actually from the Philippines, and I had a couple Filipino and half Filipino and Brazilian students at that school. 5,000 JET participants, 5,000 different situations. Talked a little bit about some of ours. Some people, on the application, you can choose. You can put placement requests, and there's no guarantee you'll get a replacement request, but I would advise you not to leave it blank. Think about even, some people think, oh, I'll go anywhere, I'll do anything, but then they really hate cold weather, and they're putting a Hokkaido, and they hate it,
That was my one thing I had to avoid
Yeah.
was Hokkaido. So I put some requests, but as a note, I put somewhere warm, please.
So it's definitely worth putting like a placement request, and there's also check boxes for whether you'd like to be like a rural or suburban or an urban jet. And again, every situation is different. The rural jets definitely lower cost of living and things like that, but you'll probably be not only the only person who speaks English for 100 miles, but probably the only non-Japanese person for a long distance who speaks 100 miles. And you know, it was interesting. One time we had a jet who was about to depart. He was like, when I get over there, I'm just walking around and like, nobody's going to know who I am or anything. How do I get by? And I'm like, oh no, everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows who you are, and they know where you live. So that's kind of the rural situation. In the cities and suburbs, you'll be closer to other ALTs like you were talking about. In my apartment building, there was another ALT in an apartment above me, and then 2 blocks away, there were 2 girls. It was like males and females separated into 2 apartment buildings. So we could, you know, we lived 2 blocks from each other. We could go to the mall, we could go out to eat.
That's just
really
Harajuku,
quickly.
isn't it?
Is that Harajuku?
It looks a lot like Harajuku.
Cool.
When I was there.
Yeah. There is now placement in Tokyo, which has only been going on for a couple of years. And so that's sort of new territory, new pioneering territory for the JET program. But that, again, is gearing up for the Olympics in 2020. Any questions about those? Here's a little bit about placements. You're placed all over, from Hokkaido down through Okinawa. We've talked about it. You could be on a small island. You could be in a village in the middle of nowhere. You could be in Tokyo or Hokkaido, all throughout Japan. And on the application, you can put up to 3 requests, 3 placement requests. Again, think about it, whether you like cold weather or not. I'll be honest, when I did my application, I only put Nagoya because I had studied abroad in that area and because I'm kind of a car nerd and knew I was probably going to work in the automotive industry for my career, which I have, and that's where my favorite car company is based, in Aichi Prefecture. Anybody know which one it is? Aichi Prefecture?
Oh, Toyota?
Toyota, yeah! I was like, I want to go to Nagoya and Aichi Prefecture because that's where Toyota is. And that was the only request I put, and I did not get it. I got put in Takamatsu, way far away. Again, what I learned and what I speculate is because, like I said, I taught you at that rougher school, and the schools can have requirements for their ALTs. And that school was like, this is kind of a special situation. We need a male who can handle himself when, you know, a fight breaks out or whatever. We need somebody with a high Japanese ability. Because they told me, let the kids know you speak Japanese. And that way they'll like you. Because if they don't like you, you won't survive here. So that's why I got placed at that school. But I wish I had put some more areas because I used to be an avid snowboarder and I couldn't snowboard where I was. So I wish I had gone to Hokkaido for the snowboarding or something like that. So think about that. The placement request is not guaranteed. And what happens with JET is first you're accepted onto the program and you have to choose whether to decline or accept that position. And it's after you accept, like almost, a month or so after you choose to accept, then you know your placement. So there's that little bit of risk, and what looks really bad, what definitely hinders your chances at JET in the future, and I would say even your career, is when you get accepted to the JET program, you're like, yes, I'm doing this. And you get that placement in Hokkaido, and you're like, nah, I'm out of here. Forget this. Hokkaido, I'm not going there. I'm out. That causes a lot of problems for the JET program process. So
to the extent that you get fined and you're not allowed to reapply for a year or something like that.
Yeah. So those are some things to think about in terms of placement. Any questions about placement? Nope. Everybody hanging in there? Yeah.
So, like, Hokkaido is a very large island.
Right.
If you were to say just Hokkaido, it didn't matter anywhere, that's going to be more likely to be stationed in Hokkaido.
Right. I can't say internally what goes on. Again, I don't really know. But I mean, it's more like, if I remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you could choose the large region like Hokkaido, and then you could specify Sapporo if you wanted to be in the city. And if you check the urban checkbox, then that's obviously more like yes, you want to go to Hokkaido for whatever reason, but you also want to be in the city, in Sapporo.
So
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to say a specific location, but just like somewhere populated or like somewhere warm, something like that.
Yeah, you could put.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah,
there's 3
you
different
did that.
levels of specificity. So you can either pick one specific city or town or a specific spot inside a prefecture or one specific prefecture, or even the third level is the very large sections of Japan. Like one of the ones I picked was basically everything on the main island south of Kyoto.
Okay.
Like that was like a really huge section.
Okay.
And then you can pick rural, semi-urban, or urban.
What did you pick?
I picked semi-urban.
Did
and
you
I
get
got
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Shimabara is about 40,000 people, so it's not quite tiny.
That exactly happened to me. I got the Tokyo orientation and I already knew my placement and everything and got over it and was really excited about it. But then I was having breakfast with some people and just talked to the guy next to me and it's like, hey, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to Toyota City in Aichi Prefecture. Did you request that? No, I didn't put any placement request. Exactly where I wanted to go. He put no placement request. I got the city I was trying to get into. So, yeah. Good story. Okay, how you guys holding up in terms of being tired and everything?
Got the break?
Well, we got like 2 more slides.
Okay.
I saw the thumbs up, but I don't see the energy in your faces. Here is some of the qualifications of what would make a great JET. I think we've talked a lot about this. Again, where are you going on the JET program? Japan. Is the language different?
Yes.
Is the culture different?
Yes.
Yeah. So that definitely takes a lot of adaptability, and most people are going to be ALTs, and what have we discussed that involves?
Children.
Children, yeah. So what are some of the skills you need to work with kids?
Patience.
Patience,
Flexibility.
flexibility,
Positive.
positive attitude, I love it. Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, it's on the slide. But I mean, really, if you just think about it, that's what you need. And also the passion for teaching. You don't have to have a teaching certification or be an education major, but just wanting to teach, to share your own culture, to learn about Japanese culture, and genuine interest in Japan. So here is the application timeline for this year. So we're talking about the application is going to open up on the JET Program USA website, which should be on your brochures, in about October or so. As I'll talk about, there's things you can do to prepare right now, even in July for it. And the application deadline is going to be in about mid-November or into November. So once it opens up, there's probably about like that 6-week period that the application is open, that you've got to get everything put together, done, and sent in to the Japanese Embassy in DC. In the United States, all U.S. applicants are going to be initially evaluated at the Embassy of Japan in Washington, D.C. Does anybody know what an embassy is versus a consulate, the difference?
The ambassador's there.
The ambassador's there, okay. What else?
And the consulates are sort of subsidiaries of the
Yeah.
embassy.
An embassy, there can be only one.
Yeah.
Consulates are all over a place, but diplomatic offices, yeah. So you hear it in movies all the time, like the embassy's been destroyed by aliens or the consulate's been taken over by terrorists, but that's kind of the difference between them. So first, everybody goes to the embassy, which is only one, and that's where the initial screening takes place. And then come about January or so, when did you get notified for your interview?
It was mid to late January.
Mid to late January, okay. Then he's told he's going to interview in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you put on your application you wanted to be interviewed and departing from.
Yeah, you put that very early on in your application, which
Yeah.
city that you want to be interviewed at.
So if you put Chicago or somewhere else, that's where you'd interview and generally speaking depart from. And those interviews will take place in late January or early February.
Jeez, it's been a long time.
Yeah. I mean, you started your application.
October was a long time ago.
Yeah, October last year, yeah.
What's the interview process like?
The interview process is they're about 30-minute interviews in front of a panel.
Okay.
And you'll be interviewing people all day long.
They just ask you questions about.
Yeah, without disclosing what was
Yeah.
discussed in the interview, how was the process for you?
I mean,
Because that's one of the rules for applying.
Oh.
You can't disclose.
yeah,
It was
it's not an
discussed.
NDA. I can say that there are websites that you can look at that will help you prepare,
Okay.
that are unaffiliated with JET.
Do you feel those helped you?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay.
It made me, I mean, obviously they didn't read every single question that was on there, but they were similar enough that it helped me prepare. And I think I had sort of a different kind of interview than other people in that it sort of, I think they try to tailor it to each person and go over your strengths. So just have knowledge of what you are good at and
Know
your real interests in Japan.
Know your application. Know
Yes,
what
exactly,
you wrote
yes,
on
very
the
much.
application. Know what you wrote in the essay. Because I've seen it all the time. I've been like, so you wrote in your essay this. How do you feel about that? And it's like, I
Yeah,
did.
read your essay again before you go.
So definitely be familiar with your essay. And I can also say to the websites, if they help Stephen, that's great. I'm so
Yeah,
glad he's
they're-
on JET. What I've seen a lot of people do is it's almost like a laundry list of questions. When you are asked the blank question, you need to give why answer. And you can just tell people, first of all, we might not even ask question X. You know, it really depends on who's your panel, what they saw in your application that they need more information on, and what they're going to ask you to be able to fulfill their evaluation responsibilities. And you can definitely tell people who are just like, well, I would not correct the teacher right there in front of the class. Like you can tell they memorized that laundry list answer on a website and are just spitting that out. And that would kind of upset me because it's like, I need to know who you really are.
I would advise
Like-
against over-preparing.
Like seriously, I need to know, can I put you on a small island in Japan at an elementary school and you let those little monsters climb all over you and give you a concho? Do you guys know what concho is? Some people do. How would you describe concho?
Surprising.
Surprising? I'll imitate it for you, but they're Japanese kids. They're really little, so I've got to get down really low because they're short, and they run up behind you, and they put their two fingers like this, and they cram them up your butt and go, concho! and run away laughing. That's kind of my impression of it. And I got to a point in my elementary schools, I had like the sixth sense for the concho. I'd be there talking to like the vice principal or something, and my hand would just shoot out and grab that kid's hand. I don't even have to break my conversation. I could just tell it was coming and just grab his hand. And then when I got done, I'd go play with him or whatever. So there you go. I want to know, can you take a concho and be okay with it? Who here thought before they came in here that would be a requirement for the JET program? It's not. That's not like an official thing. But that shows you, as an interviewer, that might be what I want to know. You know, you don't know who you're going to be interviewed by.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm trying to remember, there is no discrimination between the female and the male ALT.
Oh, no.
No.
Am I allowed to smack them in the face when they do that to me?
See, I don't think that'd be good.
That's
Yeah.
not professional.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think they would appreciate it.
Yeah, because again, Japan thinks about things differently. They think, oh, they're kids, they're stupid, they're going to do stupid stuff, so we let them. We just take the concho. And smile.
Just take it as a...
I'll take it and smile. All right, where are we? Interviews. Any more questions about interviews?
About those websites, yeah, don't take them
Okay.
at full face value, but use them more as like a way to think about topics. So and answers to potential questions. So you're not just sitting in the room with interviewers and just going, I never thought about that. But have like some things that you can recall if you need to.
Well, the way I would feel about it too, it's like, I had my JET program interview this past week. Here is what they asked me, and here is what I said. And that's like a very specific violation of the NDA you agreed to. So there's someone who a week ago signed an agreement, a pact, and days later violated it. That's like a really low integrity behavior in and of itself. Is that someone you want to trust with your chances of being selected for the JET program? Or the way I would think about it. Yeah.
So overall for the interview, should you just try to really be yourself and get them the sense of, you don't
As
wanna
someone
come off
who's
as
sat
like
in that
this
interviewer chair, that is
perfect
exactly what I
teacher.
want. I want to know you. I want to know who you are and what you're capable of and what sort of challenges can you rise. I want, yeah, because like as I've seen it 100 times, people just just, give me a performance. That's how I would describe it. They're giving me a performance. And in a way, it is kind of a performance. It is about putting on a show and showing your best self, but yourself, your real self, not acting as someone else who you think you can manipulate the interviewers to select you for the program. Because I think that's the thought process a lot. It's like, how can I trick the JET program into accepting me? How can I manipulate the evaluators into choosing me over other people? And that's a really insincere way to approach it. Also to yourself, because if you're someone who hates kids, but you just like love anime in Japan, and it's like, well, you really weren't in a good situation yourself taking a job where you're going to be teaching kids all day and having like that much time to watch anime, in the evening. So that as a base thought process, I don't think that's a really sincere way to approach it. So long way to answer your question, yes, definitely be yourself. We still have more bullet points. After the interviews, those interview results get sent to Tokyo where they're all evaluated, and you're announced of your acceptance in about April of the year you depart. So about April, you got your notification. How'd you feel when the acceptance came in?
Relieved.
Relieved?
So I hadn't wasted 2 years of my life on.
Man, congratulations. So you then had to choose a box, yes or no.
Yeah.
You chose yes. You sent it back. Then you're on the short list to depart. Then in about May or June, you get the notification of where you're placed. Was that it for you?
Yep, Shimabara.
Shimabara, you heard that about June or May or?
It was actually a little bit earlier. I think it was early May.
Early May?
Was it?
Okay, kind of varies from year to year.
Or late May, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometime in May.
Can vary contracting organization to CO. It differs for everybody a little bit.
No, it was late May, right? Because I
Late
was
May?
thinking it was going to be in June, but then I got it early.
And then departure late July or sometimes early August. And they said like a week.
Yeah, on the 29th.
Yeah. You ever seen The Ring? 7 days.
I'm not going to watch any VHS.
Yeah. Okay, so any questions about this? Yeah.
Do you have to wait, say you get rejected, do you have to wait for the other timeline to put in another application?
Yeah. This cycle has repeated for 30 years now.
Okay.
That's what I did, because I was rejected the first time, so I had to wait until October of next year.
Yeah. And as Stephen portrays, like a lot of times, some of my best jets in a group, some of the strongest people who came into that interview room were on their second or even third time applying for it. What do you think's changed between the first and second time?
A lot of things
Yeah.
that I can speak about if you like.
Please.
So after you get your rejection letter, you're sort of out of it for a little bit, and you're not sure. I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to continue, but then I felt it was something I really wanted to invest my time in. So I decided to do just about everything that I could to make myself a good applicant. So I spoke to some JET alumni about their experiences and what they thought would be a good idea. And what I decided on was I started taking Japanese lessons here at TFLI, starting at 1.2 since I had already learned hiragana and katakana through flashcards by myself. So I unfortunately skipped over John's course, but
That's okay.
the other Japanese teacher here is a Japanese woman. She's amazing at her job. So yeah, she enjoys it. She's really fun to learn from. So
Yeah, she's my sensei. Like
Exactly.
I learned from her about teaching and things like that.
and I'm actually still taking that course. I'm going to have my last class on Monday.
Okay.
So I did 1.2 through 1.4 here, and that's helped me a lot in my Japanese, and I was able to put that on my application.
Okay.
I've also been tutoring at the Nashville Adult Literacy Council here in Nashville, which is a volunteer tutoring service for international people, migrants, immigrants who've moved to Nashville or are just here for a short time who want to learn English, and also for Americans who have not learned to read for whatever reason, and they teach them to read. But I only worked with the people trying to speak English. And I did that for many months. It's an amazing organization. You get to speak with people from all over the world, and many Japanese people as well, which I found interesting.
What is that again? I'll write it on the board.
NALC, Nashville Adult Literacy Council.
Oh, okay. It's Nashville specifically. Okay.
And they have little intro training sessions, I think, once every month or 2 months or so. And everything's free. All you need to volunteer is your time. And you can do it as much or as little as you want for hour sessions for tutoring. And it's random. You don't usually get paired with the same person week after week. Every time you go there, they'll set you up with someone new. And it's a really fresh experience each time. And you'll definitely get your teaching skills there, at least some of them.
And as a quick aside, there's a lot of organizations that do that wherever you are. There's churches and
Exactly,
public
yes.
libraries and sometimes YMCAs or different organizations that will have that same ESL tutoring that they need volunteers for.
The one thing about NALC, the students that you will tutor if you go there, they all have a certain basic level of English, so you don't have to start from the very start. If they don't speak a certain level of English, they will send them to the other sort of church organizations where they start from the very lowest level.
Okay.
In addition to all of that, I took the Teaching of English as a Second Language course here at TFLI as well, which is a 150-hour course. It's very, very well taught. Aaron, the teacher here, is amazing at his job. He's been doing it for years and years and years. You will learn everything that you did not know you needed to know to be a teacher, and more besides. So I highly recommend that. And that all those combined, I put them on my application, and honestly, I think I sailed right through it.
And
so.
you also exactly addressed the specific skills you would need, the teaching certification and the teaching experience and the Japanese language ability. You know, you could go get skills in programming, computer programming or something, and that would be great. But what you did was identify those JET-specific skills and work on building.
Yeah, so I went from being not even making it to the interview in the first round to making it all the way through within 1 year. Actually, less than 1 year. I think it was only like 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
So if you put your mind to it, you can, even without any Japanese experience whatsoever, you can get in the program.
Yeah.
For like doing the NALC and the teaching thing, do you have to be a certain age, or can you already do it kind of like build up between? Because I'm not young, I'm not old enough to apply because I'm still in high school.
I'm not sure.
Usually if people need volunteers, they'll take
yeah. They'll take
whoever
what they can
get.
get, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have like a lot of Japanese skills but like very little teaching skills,
Uh-huh.
does that balance out? Or 'cause I feel like
I think there are many people in the current crop, at least here in Nashville, that are in that situation.
Yeah.
Um,
I wouldn't depend on it though.
Well, yeah,
if it really
but-
meant a lot to you. I think it's pretty obvious. It's no inside secret that teaching skills and Japanese language skills are important to go on JET. And it's if you can identify one that you're lacking in and have a tutoring opportunity or something. Also on campus, there's a lot of ESL volunteer tutoring on college campuses. If you can identify that, that is going to be really beneficial to your program. So I'd still encourage you to do that, because I've interviewed people who had rockin' Japanese, but you could tell that, and this is my own people, but they were like huge anime nerds and had really terrible social skills and absolutely no teaching potential. Again, that's my ilk of people. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. I came from that group, but you can tell like the Japanese ability, the strong Japanese ability was not enough because they had poor social skills and very little teaching experience or obvious interest. So in their cases, it doesn't always balance out. Yeah.
What about it concurrently with applying to JET? What about applying to like some of the private companies that do sort of similar services? Is there things to watch out for with like trying to get into both at the same time?
In terms of how it would affect your JET evaluation, I wouldn't think so. What we're going to have to talk about though in the interview, because what's happened to me is people apply for JET and Fulbright at the same time, and a Fulbright notification comes like a week or 2 weeks after the JET notification. So they get the JET acceptance, they're like, yeah, I'll do it. Then they get the Fulbright acceptance and they're like, never mind JET, I'm gonna go on Fulbright. So something like that, I'm definitely gonna want to talk about in the interview and how that may affect. But for me personally, I think it is a really good idea to have the backup plans. The person who comes into the JET interview and it's like, if I did ask you, what's your plan if you don't get on JET? have nothing to do with my life then. You know, that doesn't look good just as you for having professional skills and abilities. So even if you are looking at Interact, which I think has a more flexible schedule, it's a private company that does the similar thing to Jet, and then Eon is the big English conversation school chain over there. If you are looking at those other things that have backup plans, I think that's just like a good thing to have in general. What was just described happened to a friend of mine. He did not get Jet. He applied to Interact, went over to Japan, but while on Interact, he did apply for Jet again. This time got to the interview stage, again, probably because now he had teaching experience in Japan through Interact, and yeah, he had to fly back to San Francisco and do his Jet interview and all that. So logistically, it's going to be a challenge. They don't do Skype interviews. I've always got a question. Can you do Skype interviews? Can I interview at the American Embassy in Tokyo? No, if you put Nashville on your application, you're coming to the Nashville consulate to interview wherever you are in the world.
They make exceptions, it would take forever.
Yeah, there's no way. And again, there's no need to, if you're like, well, you're not going to make an exception for me, I'm not going to go on Jet. That's fine. I've got thousands of other people to choose from. I don't have to make an exception for you. Snowflake is what, I'll be honest, that's what I used to say. I used to say snowflake princess specifically, even for the males. So I don't have to make an exception for you, snowflake princess. I got thousands of other people waiting to get on this program. So, okay, yeah.
So this is kind of going back to like the times where there won't be schooling, you know?
Yeah.
So there wouldn't, I'm guessing there wouldn't be time where we wouldn't be earning any money just because we wouldn't be, you know, teaching or doing anything.
Now you get paid a stable monthly salary.
Okay, so no matter whether school's in session or not? Or?
Right.
Okay.
Now even if they're on the summer vacation, generally speaking, you are still expected to come to school, to come to work. All the other teachers come to work. A lot of them are baseball coaches or in charge of clubs, and the students will still have baseball practice and things like that during the summer break. So all the Japanese teachers are expected to show up to work even in the summer vacation. Generally, so are you, unless you're communicating and specifically asking for time off to travel or go back home or whatever. Yeah, your vacation time. Yeah, like as I'd riding my bike to work in the typhoons, they would close school that day, but the teachers would go to work in case there was an emergency or something. So the teachers would be at school even though classes were canceled because of the typhoon. So the one time, yeah, I had to ride my bike through a typhoon to go to school, and then my city hall was like, you know what? There's no point in that. You know, there's no point in Johnson, say, risking his life in the typhoon to come to school and do nothing. So then after that, I would get typhoon days off, which are awesome because typhoons are intense, but they only last like 2 hours. And then you go to the mall or whatever, you got the rest of the day. I actually like typhoons. Okay, anything else, guys? A lot of great discussion. It's the point of a live event. Yeah.
I am concerned about like classroom management. Like, how does that work as an ALT?
You mean in terms of discipline and everything?
Yeah.
A lot of it is the responsibility of the JTE. And so you don't have to worry about it too much, but then you do have, you know, students who disrupt. And I can tell stories about it later, but they also have a different approach and feeling to discipline in Japan. In Japan, here in the States, it's more like you have to be in the classroom. You are required to come to class or you're truant, and you get in trouble for that. In Japan, the thought process I would describe it as more as like you have a right to be in the classroom as a student. Being in the class is your right. If you choose not to exercise it, you just chose not to exercise your right. If you choose to show up in the classroom and be all noisy, the ALT can't throw you out of there because that's denying your right to the classroom. So there is sort of a different paradigm and way of looking at things. And so in that case, like surface discipline often is different as well. And my advice to Nugents would be generally first let the JTE handle things. Even if it doesn't seem like they're doing anything, let them do what they do in their system. And then if you have a question or a concern, discuss it with your JTE after class. My friend Cameron, what she tells people is what she's seen people do is they'll want to, if a class is being rowdy or something, the ALT who doesn't have such a great Japanese ability will try to like scold the class in Japanese, but their Japanese isn't that great. So then the kids like laugh at the teacher and don't take him seriously, and then don't calm down. It just makes the situation worse. Whereas if you left it to the JTE, and yeah, they're rowdy and stuff, but that would have been a better way to handle that situation. I've got a good story. I don't have time for it in the presentation about the discipline and everything at the rough school I taught at. Because again, fights, broken windows, smoking, all of that was going on. So I can tell you more of my stories about that class later, or that school later. Okay? Other questions? That was all technically the timeline, but we've talked about a lot of stuff. I do have this list of the actual items that go on the application. We've got about 5 minutes left in the scheduled time, but do you guys want to go through this one at a time? What do you all want to do? Want to go through it each item at a time and explain it? Okay?
I'm up for it.
You're up for it?
Okay.
Okay. Thankfully, I've done this like hundreds of times. I hope I can still do it. It's been a while. First, you're going to have the original signed application. Maybe Stephen can tell us about this. You went on the website, you filled out a lot of information online, and then you printed out an application.
It's honestly pretty easy.
It's pretty easy?
They make it easy for you.
Yeah.
The online application is very self-explanatory.
But you did have to physically sign
Yes,
it.
yes.
Yes, that's
so you
important.
fill it out all online, and then it's like, okay, here's a PDF version of everything you filled out. Just print this out, sign it, put it in an envelope, send it to the MC with all of the other things that you need to send.
But don't forget to sign it.
Yes.
That's the
it's a
point.
signing date.
That could disqualify you. You'll need 2 letters of recommendation. You'll need 2 recommenders. And you guys who are still in college, and correct me if this is no longer the case, you'll need one of your recommenders to come from your university, and they'll need to speak in their letter towards your graduation date to sort of back up and certify you will graduate by the time you expect to. If you've graduated, that's not a requirement. These letters of recommendation are confidential. You are not allowed to read them. There is a system through which your recommender or your reference writer can submit their recommendation electronically.
If we have graduated from college,
Right.
just in your opinion, who would you recommend in terms of reference letters? I mean, like
Yes.
a boss or...
Someone who can speak to your abilities and your skill sets and your knowledge sets. What to kind of give you some examples, I have read some that, and these were university students, but maybe they did graduate and they went back to professor, and the letter says something along the lines of, she took my global studies class 101 in the fall of 2015 and got a B. That tells me nothing.
Yeah.
That tells me nothing. But it's someone's like, I was their academic advisor for 3 years and also their teacher in this class, and we worked on this project over the summer, and in this project the candidate accomplished these tasks, so they proved they had these skills. So someone who's a boss or a supervisor could speak to that better. Another great example is, I was talking to a kid in Kentucky, and he would volunteer at the local Japanese Saturday school, like a Japanese supplementary school where Japanese kids can study math and science in Japanese. He would volunteer there, and that was a great thing for his application. He's like, man, I'm going to get the principal of that Saturday school to write my recommendation because he's the principal. He's got that title. And I'm like, do you report directly to him? No. Does he assign your work and your tasks? No. Does he see you work at the day? No. He sits in his office all day. But he's the principal, man. He's got the weight. And I'm like, you would be better off getting the recommendation from the teacher who you work with at that school, who's directly assigning your work task and seeing your performance day to day. They can speak to what your skill sets are much better than someone who has a title or whatever.
Yeah, my people I asked were, one was the director of the TESOL program here at TFLI. So I knew him very well. He's a great guy. And he knew exactly what I was capable of since he was the one running the program.
Right.
And the other person was the person in charge of running the volunteer program at NELC. And she was a great person, and I had been there for months and months, so she knew me pretty well.
Yeah.
And so I had one academic one here at TFLI and had one sort of job one, volunteer job
yeah.
one. And I think that worked out really well.
Yeah.
And also it says on the application, no friends or family.
No friends
Even though
or
that's
family.
your friends or family for a letter.
So think of it like even you guys who have been my students in 1.1, what could I say on your recommendations? She took my 1.1 class, she came to class every week, missed one time during the term, and was generally very active and participated in the class activities. You know, that's about like the extent I could say. on a letter of recommendation for someone who's taken my Japanese class here at TFLI. And I think and I hope that there's someone in your life or in your academic career who could speak in more detail about what you're capable of. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Real quick, some technical things. You'll need official transcripts of all colleges and universities attended. Official transcripts issued by the registrar's office, okay? Not ones you print off online, ones that have the seal or the signature of the registrar's office, and that it's all community colleges and everything attended. What I've seen people do is they went to community college and got some credit, and they tried to get a transcript, and they're going to have to pay to mail it, and there's only a week to the application, and they don't include that community college transcript, and that would negatively affect their evaluation. So just get official transcripts from all universities and colleges, not high schools or anything of that level.
Yeah. So that would include like study abroad colleges as well?
That would include study abroad in most cases, because down here, if you do put you've done a study abroad on your application, you're going to need to prove that. And the transcript can do that, but also can a letter from your study abroad office or something.
While I'm studying abroad, one of my friends said she wanted to set me up with like a 2-day-a-week teaching job over there.
Mhm.
And since that's teaching experience, where would that be mentioned?
In the application,
Application.
there's going to be a section for your work experience.
Do you have to be like certified to teach, or is just teaching experience okay?
You don't even need the teaching experience. It just
Okay.
helps a lot.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
You made it sound important. so.
It is important.
Well, yeah.
When I applied the first time, it's just like saw that page and just had to leave it all blank because they had nothing to put in there, and it just makes you feel kind of bad when somebody's flipping through your application to see this big empty page.
Yeah.
I could have put something there.
And I would advise you to think what your work experience, how it could be applicable. Some people think, oh, I worked at Taco Bell or the swimming pool or whatever. I don't even need to put that. But put that on the application. And I had one applicant in the interview, and she played it really strong. She said, I've been working at my local swimming pool since I was 16 years old. When I first started, I was just cleaning the pool, and then when I was 18, I was teaching swim lessons, and so I know how to teach kids, and I have experience with kids, and I've been working at that pool every summer ever since. She had really was really able to strongly apply her experience at the pool to the JET program, and I was pretty impressed with it in the interview. So don't leave any of that work experience off the application, because otherwise it's just a blank page, like you said. The transcripts, if you've graduated, you guys will need to include the proof of your graduation. The easiest thing is a photocopy of your diploma, okay? For you guys who have not graduated, you're going to have to include in a document usually from the registrar's office that has your enrollment status and something with your expected graduation date. It happens all the time. People think they're going to graduate May of 2018, and they don't. So then they're not eligible for the JET program anymore. So that's why you need to really speak to your expected graduation date in your application. The big one is the statement of purpose essay, which I could talk about in detail after this. But this is something that even if you're in high school or whatever, you can start right now. And what I'd recommend is you draft that up and you get other people to read it and provide you feedback. And then you revise that essay. If you're still in school, take it to your campus writing center. Take it to your sensei, your friends and family. Have other people read it and revise it and make sure your point is really clear and that you're speaking really clearly to the needs of the application. You need to include proof of U.S. citizenship. The easiest thing to do is make a photocopy of your passport. If you don't have a passport, get one. It's just one of those things you need to have in life. And there are some other documents that are only necessary in specific situations. I'll describe them quickly. If you have more detailed questions, we can talk about it later. If you are being treated for any sort of physical or mental condition, taking prescription medications, there is an extra physician's form that you will need your doctor to fill out to certify, yes, you are healthy enough to participate on the JET program, even though you're taking thyroid medication or whatever it is. If you have anything in your criminal record, you will need to disclose that, and also later on in the application process, provide an FBI background check. This includes anything you think was expunged or you were not charged with. I've seen this get people all the time. You stole a bicycle when you were 10 years old. that arrest still shows up on your record, even though you were a minor. Disclose it. I stole a bike when I was 10 years old. Because even if a charge gets expunged, even if they come to your house and arrest you for murder and they've got the wrong guy, that arrest will still show up on your record if they take you to a police station and take your fingerprints and all that. Okay, the proof of study abroad we've talked about, and any of the certifications like we've talked about. The TESOL, so you made a photocopy of that, or if you have a JLPT certification, make a photocopy of that certification and include that in your application packet. Any questions about this?
Just one comment.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to think about it, but do not lie about anything on your application.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, it will be visible at some point or another, and they will remove you from the program.
Right. And we, the speculation websites and the Facebook groups and everything, I used to watch that as a JET coordinator. JET coordinators know how to use Facebook. And they're like, well, I'm taking this depression medication, but I'm not going to disclose it on my JET application because I'm afraid they'll disqualify me. If you're taking depression medication, you've got some things you need to work out before you think about living in a foreign country where you don't speak the language first, okay? So that does not gain you anything by trying, like Steve said, to lie or to withhold information that the application is specifically asking for. And some helpful hints. I think we've talked about a lot of this, have we?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I want to emphasize that essay as being the most important thing. Start that tomorrow, today, as soon as you can. Okay. This slide, I'm not going to read all of this, but I've seen a lot in applicants and candidates, the whole like, oh yeah, Japan! Japan's cool! I like Japan! I want to go to Japan, I think it's awesome. You can see their excitement and their passion, but they've not really thought about what JET means, what it is to teach, what it is to be a part of a cultural exchange, what the bigger picture is, and not only the sort of ideological things the JET program writes on its website, but what do you do specifically? What have been your physical action items you've done in your life? So, some people will put on their essay, I am someone dedicated to international exchange. Okay? How? Why? The 5 W's, 1 H. That's what I'm going to ask you in your interview. What have you done as part of this being a person who's committed to international exchange? And if you're someone like Stephen who says he's volunteered, volunteered at the Cherry Blossom Festival or Japan-related events, then yeah, I've got something that I can believe you are dedicated to that. So as you put together your application, think about the big picture things and also the small, very specific things that you are doing and what makes you qualified and excited to be a part of this program that's been around for 30 years now and has had huge impacts on not just individuals in our lives, but also on the relationships of countries. So that's the website you go to for the information. Pretty easy to remember now, jetprogramusa.org. That's the official site for here in the US at the embassy. If you'd like to get more information locally, there's the contact information for the Japanese consulate in Nashville, phone number and email address. And Jet Program USA is on Facebook and Twitter. I follow them, and they're actually posting a lot of really good blogs and articles and everything about the Jet experience on Facebook on a regular, pretty much daily basis. So those are great things to read and keep up with what the Jet experience is and what it means. Are there any other questions or things you guys would like to discuss here today? Yes?
Say you take the classes here for Japanese and stuff, but say it's not great, but you got accepted and you're going. Would your Japanese be improve once you get over there? Like the basics, a little bit more. Would you get way better as soon as you get in that environment? You're using it all the time.
I hope so.
So I train jets like Stephen still. And what do I teach when I do the jet training?
You want people to learn hiragana from the very start.
Right. But I also had a chart in my presentation. So here you are at 0 when you start learning Japanese.
Oh, that's okay.
Here you are when you start taking classes at TFLI in college or whatever. Here you are on jet.
Yeah.
Okay? Here you are after you leave jet. There you are for the rest of your life. That's called stabilization. which is Tei Chakuka in Japanese. Repeat after me. Tei Chakuka.
Tei
Chakuka.
Very good. Okay. So this is the language learning process for everybody, and this part right here is JET. So definitely skyrocket your ability. That presentation I gave at their Q&A is up on my YouTube channel. So you can find that through my website, johnsensei.com. That has that chart. It looks a lot better than when I do that. Man, guys, usually when I do these info sessions, they go for an hour. We scheduled 2 hours for this one just in case, and we've gone 2 hours and 15 minutes with this stuff. So this has probably been like one of the best JET info sessions we've given in terms of content and everything. I'll be hanging out if you still got questions or things you want to talk about privately. Again, as I've said a couple times, my website is johnsensei.com. I'm out there on Facebook and Twitter at Mr. John Sensei, posting interesting articles and resources I find about learning Japanese and about my game Hiragana Breaker, which you can pick up a card for on the way out. I want to thank everybody who attended. Thanks to Stephen, our new JET, who leaves next week. Big round of applause for him. I think we gave you guys a lot of great information, and thanks again to the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute for hosting us and providing Japanese language courses and TESOL certifications to the Nashville community. Okay, thank you guys very much. That's it.